Can you hear me?
Hello, Mom.
Mom, you are live on the podcast.
I'm live.
On the podcast. Now listen, I did say I was going to come and see you. As soon as I'm finished here. Is there anything important?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the mic. I have a great guy here with me, Ryan. Is that Ryan?
It's actually Roan. Roan Webb.
I'm struggling, man. I'm struggling
No,
with
you're doing
name.
a fantastic job. Absolutely.
But yeah, bring yourself forward.
Here we go.
Bring yourself forward.
My name is Roan Webb. I'm part of here the Ipswich community.
Yep.
I had the pleasure and the honour of meeting you a few months ago at the Veterans collaboration. We actually had a gathering of the Army, Air Force and Navy veterans here in Ipswich, and I had the pleasure of meeting you there. I then found out a little bit about you. In fact, can I break it now? I'm going to break the silence by saying I found out a little bit about you, and everything I've heard was really good. And that was in between the first time I said, yes, it was fantastic news. So even my girlfriend actually told me a little bit about you. And that was what kind of pushed me over the edge. I said, who's this guy? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
And she says, oh, you got to get in with this guy. He's going to be able to help you. So, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little bit about myself.
Yes, sir. Please. Yes.
No problem.
Do that.
So I am now 55 years of age. I was born here in Ipswich.
Hold on, man. You look young, man.
What?
I
don't know about that.
You look like a baby, man.
Before I come out with the old cliche that something doesn't crack.
Right. Yeah, that's a saying that they say, black men don't crack.
Yeah, black don't crack, that's right.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. Do you know what? Before I get back to my story, it's quite funny, actually, because I was in a shop just the other day, and when I walked in, there was a security guard, and we were just having a laugh and a giggle, and he said something to me, and I told him my age, and then he said to me, well, how old do you think I am? And I've got to admit, he looked, maybe 40 or something, he looked all right. He said, dude, I'm nearly 60.
Really?
So even as a black guy, we get fooled by it. So again, black don't crack.
Yeah.
So going back to myself then. So I was born here in Ipswich. I'm the only one of a large family that was actually born here in the UK. My brothers and sisters were all born back in Jamaica from my parents, and they came over in the 60s, and then I was born subsequently after that.
Right. Okay.
I have always lived in Ipswich up until leaving school. I went to Coppleston here, which is one of the local schools here in Ipswich. And do you know what? Nothing particularly different about my upbringing than anyone else's, other than the fact, obviously, I come from an Afro-Caribbean descent. Yeah. So the real reason why I wanted to get involved with yourself and maybe put as much out there as I possibly could is because I believe that as the community, the Afro-Caribbean community, we can be and should be doing more for each other.
I think so.
Now, a lot of the black people here in the community, they had the opportunity maybe years ago of being more involved because we had a Caribbean association. Yeah. Unfortunately, that fell.
What was the name?
So it was I believe it was the ICA, the Ipswich Caribbean Association. And it was a club that was based at the bottom of Woodbridge Road East. It thrived for a while. I use the word thrive very loosely.
Yeah, that's the one that was just down the corner, isn't it?
That's right. And unfortunately, kind of fell into disrepute. Corruption was a word that was thrown around back in the day, but anyway. I'm not going to dwell on that too much.
Corruption in England.
Well, what it wasn't so much corruption as it was mismanaged.
Right. Yeah.
And it's only when you actually go to other Caribbean and Afro communities, you realize that they're thriving, that you realize how badly that we've done. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that too much because the community here in Ipswich is still very strong.
Yes.
And like I said, moving back to what I want to do is to bring as many of those different areas within the community together. Yeah. So as we were talking just before we went live, there are many people that we're discussing with each other. We realize we've all got roughly on the same path, but we haven't got together. So maybe this is where we can actually start to bring some of those personalities in. I've mentioned Max, I've mentioned Elaine, and I'm sure at some point we'll be able to bring them in. Also, I mentioned briefly my father, who, although I think he's
Your
king,
father.
Yeah, I know. I think he's king to all. The truth is, he is a personality, but he comes from an era of. In fact, you've heard the term the Windrush. Yeah,
The Windrush.
that's right. Now that particular community, the Windrush, when they came over,
yeah.
they came over because they were invited by the British government to come over here. And
Before you get in that, can you just probably there's somebody else out there never know the term of Windrush. Can you just explain it? What is the Windrush?
Do you know what the original? I always get the year wrong. I think it was 1964 or was it 1962? But there was an original invitation sent from the government and the monarchy to say, hey, look, this is post Second World War. We're trying to get the industry built back up again. Now, you could imagine there was a lot of males that were missing because they were lost in the Second World War. And then whilst trying to rebuild the industry in the nation, they fell short on manpower. And so they then indulged in actually inviting not just the Caribbean islands across, but also India. The Indians were invited over. In fact, my understanding is they actually came to the UK maybe a year or two before the West Indians.
Yeah.
Anyway, in a nutshell, that did happen. And they came over in waves, so to speak. In fact, there is an old pun that they came over in the banana boat. Now, I know. It is quite rude. Do you know, when I first heard that, I thought that was being quite rude. But no, it was literally how it was done. So some of the larger ships that came over, they were converted from industry carrying ships, and some of them were banana boats.
Banana boats.
So when they came over, you find that the people that came across, most of them went to places like Leeds, Leicester, London, Birmingham. A lot of them went to Birmingham.
Yeah.
But there was a contingency of them that settled here in Suffolk.
Yeah.
And the majority of them settled here in Ipswich. And my father was one of them. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying. My father, when he was here, he was part of this original group of black people from the Caribbean that did their best to settle in. My dad is an incredibly hard worker.
Yeah.
And one of the things that if you ever get a chance to interview and speak to him, I know he's going to say, I work every day of my life, you see. You never take a day off from the time you reach England right up to when we retire. And even when we retire, we find something to do. Right. So basically he's saying he's always kept himself busy. Even now, right at 90, he's still trying to indulge himself in stuff that it keeps him busy, keeps his mind busy. Anyway, going back to what we're saying now, so my father comes from this particular Windrush. And if you look at it holistically, there were thousands of people that came over from Windrush. And then over time, some of them went back. Oh, I do apologize.
Yeah.
There is... Would you believe it?
Yeah.
Mum, I'm busy working and I will call you back when I'm finished. I do apologize. I'm going to put it on, what's it called? Airplane mode?
But you got to take that call because it's mum calling, isn't it?
When
the mum calls.
I know, but I did tell her that I was going to be busy. She's just forgotten.
Yeah.
Plus, that's where I'm going when I leave.
Shout out to mum, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Shout out to mum.
Oh, you know what? She's ringing me back again. Mum, you are live on the podcast. Can you hear me?
Hello, mum.
Mum, you are live on the podcast.
I'm alive.
On the podcast. Now listen, I did say I was going to come and see you. As soon as I'm finished here, is there anything important?
Not really.
All right. So is Dad okay?
I haven't seen him since morning.
All right. Listen, I'm in the middle of something right now, but as soon as I'm finished, I'm going to come and see you directly. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Shout out to mom, man.
I know. Now listen. Do you know? I'm just gonna quickly say here. My mum is. She's in her 90th year as well.
Is she?
And she had her birthday just a few weeks ago.
Right.
And we normally get together. The family gets together. She's got children.
Yeah.
Obviously, myself and my brother. Grandchildren.
Yeah.
Also got great grandchildren. And here we go. She's also got great grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah. So legendary. So always make time for my mum.
Yeah.
And the pattern or path, should I say, that I've taken since the last, say, 10 years is incorporated looking after my parents, because I'm the youngest one.
Yeah.
The youngest one by 10 years. And my next brother up, he lives in London, and so he does his fair share, but obviously he's not here. So I've found that the work that I do, it's free enough to be there for my parents when they need me. Obviously, with them turning into their 90s now, I'm needed a lot more than what I was before. So, when the phone rings, I answer it.
Yeah,
if they need
me. Beautiful. Shout out to you, because life has changed now.
Absolutely.
A lot of people, they don't look after their parents.
I find it, do you know what? I was talking to a friend of mine, and they said that their mum was living somewhere, but a care home, and their father was living with another brother, and I thought, okay, so who's looking after them? I said, we haven't at the time, and I found it absolutely extraordinary.
That is mad crazy.
I know it's mad crazy.
That is.
Would not allow either one of my parents to go into a care.
What happened to the old school?
Yeah.
Why just dump your parents there?
Your parents look after you all your life, and then you turn around and then you look after them. That's how it should work.
That should work, yeah.
But apparently not everyone thinks the same way as me and you. But there you go. Anyway. So my father, he came over to the UK, settled down. He started working here in Ipswich, and then after a year or two, he went back to Jamaica to pick up my mum.
Yeah.
And my brother at the time came over here and then settled down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was born back in 1969.
Right.
Yeah. And I grew up. I went to Coppleston, and after I left Coppleston, I joined the army.
You joined the
British Army. Yeah, and I wasn't with them for too long, but the reason why I'm wearing this, as you can see, it says Blind Veterans UK.
Blind Veterans,
yeah, Blind Veterans UK. So I have an issue with my eyesight, which was discovered while I was in the British Forces, and when I came out of the British Forces, there was a charity here to assist me with that, and they've been absolutely fantastic. And in turn, now I do as much charity awareness and as work as I can for them. Yeah. Even day before yesterday, I was doing an event, and next week I'm off to Spain to do another event where we'll be doing, it's kind of like a gauntlet of different mini events.
Yeah.
Assault courses. Like I said, there's one point where we go under a cave, this under the sea. Yeah. When the sea tide goes out, it empties out. I will give you the video of this, by the way. The sea, and it leaves this cavern where you can just wriggle in. And the real funny thing is when you see the video, you'll see me wriggling in. I'm not a skinny or a small guy. Yeah. So I struggled a little bit to squeeze through this hole. I managed to come out the other side.
But how was it? How was it to be in the British Army?
I can tell you all about that. Yeah. The real weird thing is, when I joined, it was. In fact, some people will say before I joined it, there was a different era. And it was steeped in racial aggression.
I wouldn't do it because I feel like, to be a black man, you're gonna be put at the front, at the front.
Well, not so much. No. I'm happy to say all truths in how they exist, but I don't believe that was true.
Yeah.
So if there was a regiment and there were black people in it, no, they wouldn't push the black people. There may be regiments.
Maybe they wouldn't.
No,
black people go at the front. They want to kill them first.
No. That's an absolute myth, and I wouldn't sit here and allow that to be propagated in any way at all.
Yeah.
But what I will say, there were other areas where racism was real. And I'm quite happy to talk about that. But for example, there are regiments where, for example, just to side with you on this one, there are some regiments that have more ethnic minorities than other regiments. In fact, I could even go so far as to say there are some regiments that will not accept people that are black. Now, this was highlighted on TV.
Is that before then?
Yeah, there was a program. Was it called Equinox? No, it's called Panorama. I think it was called Panorama.
Yes.
And they did a couple of exclusives. In fact, it panned over a period of years because when it first came out, there was this big hurrah about, oh my gosh, could this really have happened? And then I think there was another exclusive that was done a few years later when the regiment, all of a sudden, they did have a few black people because they went from not having anyone to then trying to pull some in to say, oh, look, we're not racist. Look, we've got this guy's here. But it actually ended up firing back into their faces because then when they interviewed those individuals, one of which was actually I think it was Indian. No, he was Pakistani.
Yeah.
And he had an absolute horrendous time. Yeah,
Really?
and he spoke his truth, and so now what's happened is I believe to this day it's stigmatized. So if you're a black person, you probably wouldn't want to be a so-called Grenadier Guard or a Coldstream Guard or whatever, guarding the Queen or what's not. But that this is. Be careful how I word this. If you want to do that, there are ways to become that.
Right.
The advice would be there's the army is a very big institution, and I'm sure there's something you could find that you'd fit in much better. So that's, again, it's up to yourself. Now, when I joined, things were a little bit different. It moved on a little bit, and when I joined, racism itself wasn't there openly, but it certainly was there overtly. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I was lucky enough to be in a regiment where there were quite a few black guys. Yeah. So what tends to happen is they congregate.
Yeah.
And as you know, we can pretty well take care of ourselves. So
That's right.
we more or less got left unless we were out on a limb by ourselves just doing something. Yeah, you might get targeted.
Yeah.
But generally, lunch breaks when you're going out in the evening, no, we got absolutely left alone. And to be fair, it's not like everyone's racist. There'll be one or two. I suppose that the difficulty is when someone of a high rank is racist. Yeah, then that could be a real issue.
Could spread towards the other people and everything.
Yeah. I know that this is a hot subject, so I'll always address something quite conservatively, and I'll be candid. But I tend to be a little bit tippy-toe because the realization for some people is that the racism is still there.
Yeah.
So although today, for example, things have moved on, I would be a clown if I was to try and insinuate that it's not still there, because it is. And the knock-on effect of that is there are some institutions which post-military still carry this trend. For example, one of them might be the police force.
Yeah.
We know that that's there. Yeah. And no one's going to tell you, for example, that the police aren't racist. Some of them most certainly are.
Yeah.
But it even trickles down even further. So I myself am involved with a charity.
Yeah.
And the charity that I'm involved with, I have already had confrontations of this nature, and I've had to deal with them in the best way I possibly could. But one of the ways, there's two ways of dealing with this. Sometimes it's to turn the other cheek, so to speak, and to walk off.
That's right.
Which, if you're only going to have the one interaction with them, then sometimes that's better. You can just get on with your life and forget about it. We've learned to do that over hundreds of years.
That's true, yeah.
But then there comes a time when it does need to be dealt with, and that's what I've had to do over the years as well.
Yeah.
And so it actually it culminated into a charity-wide intervention where they tried it'd be impossible to thwart it altogether, but what they tried to do is to make it so aware that anyone who chose to be racist, they would then be the ones who are uncomfortable, rather than the people that are black or of ethnic minority feeling uncomfortable.
Right.
So that was a step forward. Hold on, if you was to ask me today, is that completely negated? Is it a case that there's no more racism? No, there is still racism.
There's still racism.
Yes, there is.
It's still hidden under there.
Yes, it's overt. That's right. And so it's just something that we all have to deal with.
But then, you're young now, and you're deciding to go. You finish high school.
Mm-hmm.
You said, "I want to go to the army."
Oh gosh!
What triggered you to say this is the institution?
So remembering that what I'm saying here is your recording, and this is live, and there's the opportunity for hundreds, maybe thousands of people to hear this. So I want to get one thing clear first of all.
Yeah.
If you are a black youngster in Ipswich, in Suffolk, in England, in the UK, and you're thinking of joining the forces, join the forces, because it is a very different animal today than it was when I joined.
Yeah.
And indeed, it was a different animal when I joined from people who were there before me. So it's always moving forward. And one of the things I will say as a black person, you can actually do much better today in the forces than maybe the opportunities that were given to black people when I joined. So please, if you ever hear this, don't let me discourage you. The forces, the British forces, is a brilliant, fantastic way to take the first steps after school to finding a future, and more importantly, finding yourself. Because what you often find with youngsters, when they join the army at the age of 16, 17, 18, they don't know who they are, they don't know who they want, they just know they want something better than what they have right now, and the military is a brilliant way of making those first few steps. So let me hammer that out first.
Okay, cool, yeah.
Now, going back to what you was asking me directly, for me, what changed, what motivated me to do that is very simple for me to answer this.
That's right.
Now, and I'll tell you how. I was 11, 12 years old. In fact, no, I was younger when my brother. Now you've met my brother. You met
yeah,
my brother.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Now he was in the army before me. Yeah.
Yes.
And he is also another fantastic person. That if you ever he's a very busy person. He's actually one of the executives at Thames Water in London.
Thames Water. Yeah.
Thames Water. So he's doing brilliant. He's very busy. But if you ever get the chance to interview him, I'd say take him because he's got a few stories himself. And he's a very positive-minded person. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of good things to say. But when he joined the army, he's 10 years older than me. Yeah. So when he joined the army, I was 6, 7, 8 years old. Yeah. And all I saw was clips of him coming back with his uniform and he's looking good. I'd see the photos of him running around and he'll be flying off to Germany and flying off to Hong Kong and all this exciting stuff, And then the one time I had when I was 12 years old, we did a field trip from Coppleston High School to Germany. And it just happened to be the same place where my brother was. So I got to see some of this fantastic stuff. So time it came to me being 13, 14, I had a chance then to choose what my humanities, you know, when you turn to 14, you choose the subjects that you're then going to be tested at when you turn 16, 17 for your exams. Yeah. So most people are choosing like French or social Spanish, whatever, or humanities. Yeah, I said German, man, because I already had in my head that when I left the army, I was going to join the army. When I left the school, I was going to join the army.
Went crazy,
and I was going to go to Germany. That was it, yeah. So because I'd seen all the pictures, that's what I wanted. Yeah. So going back to answering your question now. When I eventually did finish my exams, I really knew what I wanted to do. And then I did a little stint at college. I knew what I wanted to do. And then I joined the army, again, knowing full well what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I got in. And as soon as I got in, I was then given the option to do certain different trades. I just wanted one that was going to get me to Germany. And that was the whole focus was I wanted this life that my brother had before me, 10 years before me. Yeah. And I more or less got that. So like that. I did a lot of traveling, learned lots of,
Tell me, man, your first day holding a gun.
Why? Do you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this.
You're in the army, man. The guns are everywhere.
Right. Hold on. I get asked this a lot, and it's really crazy because okay, I'll tell you. It's not a problem. The fascination with guns. The really weird thing is you don't get this in America because everyone has a gun. Yeah?
In America,
America, everyone has a gun. Yeah. So that was now. What I say to you now is going to be a little bit tempered because I never had that super fascination with guns. Yes, if I saw one, I was like, what's this? And let's get involved and whatever. But there were people who joined the army because they wanted a gun. Yeah. They wanted to shoot that thing. Yeah. So I understand that, but that wasn't me. But so what happened is when you join the army, before you join the army, you have two types of training. Right. You have basic training and you have trade training. Okay. So, and in fact, before you even start your basic training, there is something like a sorting office. So you'll go to, I think then it was Sutton Coldfield, and they'll just kind of sort out the cans and the cannots, because you have some people that are just not built to be in the army, whether it's psychologically or often physically, they're just not built to be in the army. And so they kind of like sort out the chaff from the real stuff. Right. And the real stuff is what then goes forward to do basic training. And so I made it into basic training, and that's where the first time you get hold of guns and grenades and stuff like that.
So me thinking that now I'm jumping off from the high school going to the, no. I'd be so excited.
Yeah, the first time you see a gun is long after you've done a lot of other training before you start seeing weapons. And by then, the sergeant majors and the instructors have worked out who's worth this and who's going to make it and who isn't, because they don't just give you a gun on the first day and say, come on, let's get shooting. No. Hell no. This is the British Army we're talking about here. Come on, man. So in basic training, you do eventually, they will give you weapons. They teach you about all the different types of weapons. What you have to remember is I joined the army back in 1985. So the weapons then were actually very different to the weapons that they use today. Yeah, the basic weapon that everyone had was something called an SLR, a self-loading rifle. Very heavy, very cumbersome, very accurate. Yeah, really, but slow shooting. So whatever I point it at and shoot it
Yeah.
it's going down. But in modern warfare, it's more about throwing as much in that direction as you can. So the SLR became outdated very quickly. In fact, at the end of my term in the army, they brought a new weapon in called the SA-80. Which was a assault.
Man, this guy, man. I love the way you're telling these, man.
Assault, really?
The first one you said is slow.
Yeah.
Now they bring the second one, which is much
faster.
It's
well,
like
it's an assault rifle. It's not a machine gun. Because a machine gun again. There's an expression we have in the military called spray and pray. So it's when the gun just kind of goes everywhere, throws bullets in that general direction. Anything standing over there has a likelihood to get hit. Yeah. We used to have something called an SMG, which is oh my god, what was it? Small machine gun. That's all it means, small machine gun. And it came into service kind of post Second World War.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking. That's the kind of age of these weapons. And so when I was in the army, I had a slow SLR.
Yeah.
And I had an SMG that sprayed everywhere.
Yeah.
As you could imagine, these are very rudimentary weapons. Yeah. But the military went through this kind of period of updating everything and getting rid of everything. So in the time that I joined to the time that I finished, a lot of the weapons that I'd got used to, they got rid of it. And so they then had handguns that now were pinpoint accurate.
Yeah.
Which was a myth before. I mean, before we had something called a 9mm Browning, which was it would take down an elephant. If you hit it, it would take down an elephant. It's just a powerful.
No.
But it was
just a tiny thing.
It's not the bullet that comes out of a 9mm Browning is actually bigger than the bullet that comes out of the rifle. Yeah. So if it hits something, it's taking it down. But I'm coming away a little bit from what I really want to be talking about.
Right.
Because the truth of it is, the weapons did move on in periodically.
Right.
And in the time that I actually left the army, one of the reasons why I joined was for the actual. So do you remember I said there was basic training?
Yeah.
So in basic training, you learn how to use these weapons, including. I'll quickly brush on something then. So the rifles and guns didn't excite me that much, but I tell you what did raise an eyebrow with me. It was the day that we started throwing grenades at each other. that did get my attention. And I remember the day, because we'd done a lot of the gun training before then.
Yeah.
And when we went to do the grenades, it was really weird because I didn't know what kind of training we were really good. I thought you just pull the pin and throw, but no, there's a lot of safety involved, as you could well imagine.
Yeah.
And I remember that when we were throwing the first grenade, they brought them to us, because it's really weird, because if there's ever a madman, pull the pins and just throw it, be done for. But I remember they brought them in. They come in these boxes, almost like trays, and you see them there. And a grenade isn't actually a grenade. A grenade comes in two parts. There's a little pin.
Yeah.
That's connected to the grenade, but inside there's a hole in it, and there's a detonator that fits inside that. And so when you get a grenade, it's not like a grenade. You've got the pins are the ignition system is over here.
Yeah.
And the grenade is here. So you only join the two together when you're ready to go live. Yeah.
All right.
And so what happened is they would make these things and get ready. And then there was this war, so we'd go out into the yard, and there would be a wall, and they'll take us around. And one thing I couldn't work out, you see the wall's here. The wall wasn't particularly thick, but you went on the other side, and there was this huge hole on the other side. And I think, wow, what can make that? So I guess the grenade goes in there.
That's right.
The grenade gets in there. So anyway, we went down around the back side again, and we picked up these grenades. Now they're now live.
Yeah.
And you'd pull the pin. You're there next to your sergeant major, so there'd never be loads of people. It'll be you and your sergeant,
Right.
And pull the pin and you throw it over. Now, the only reason the sergeant is there is to make sure that that thing goes over the top of the wall, because if it hits the wall and runs
back, I can imagine.
And grenades as well, they actually have timers on them as well. So it's not when you pull it and it goes off. It's usually around about 8 seconds, and you can actually change it. It's adjustable. You can adjust it so it goes a bit longer, a bit shorter. But the reason why you have it long is if it does come down, you've still got plenty of time to pick it up and throw it back over again.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point to this being is a grenade is a horrifying weapon. Yeah. Right. As it goes over the top and it lands there, there's this period of time of silence where you wait for it to go off. But when it goes off, there is this almighty boom. And although it's on the other side of this wall, you can still feel its awesome power on the other side of the wall. Okay, it's not causing you any damage.
Yeah.
Now, there's a little caveat to this, because people often believe that a grenade or a mortar as such has to hit you directly for it to kill you or to take you down. That's not true. That's not true. The same way is when you're in a car, and you hit something in a car, if you're traveling along, people say, oh yeah, the cuts, the bruises, whatever. That isn't actually what kills you. It's the speed of your organs inside your body suddenly coming to a stop. Yeah. So like if you're in a plane and you suddenly come to a stop, everything squishes inside you. Yeah. Well, that's something very similar to when a mortar or a grenade goes off. Yeah, the chances are it will shred you. But even if it doesn't, it's going to do horrible damage to you through this power, this shockwave that's going through you, which does exactly the same thing through your body as if you was in a car crash. So that's why mortars are readily used and grenades are readily used. They don't necessarily. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if it does come near you, it's going to shred you up anyway. Yeah. Even if it doesn't, it causes a lot of damage otherwise as well. So that's something worth bearing in mind. Yeah. So anyway, the only reason I was saying that is that I wasn't ready for that part of it. So when the grenade went off, I was like, boom, and I just looked at my sergeant major like, what was that? Yeah. And I was like, I want no part of it. He goes, no, you've got another 5 to throw. Come on, pull yourself together, lad, and all the rest of it. So this is all character building stuff where you learn to shoot the weapons, you learn to throw grenades, you learn how
to be disciplined.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
In a way.
Well, no, in every way. Yeah. In every way, because as I was saying to you earlier on, or certainly alluding to, many youngsters at that age, they don't know who they are. They don't know what they want. The other side of the coin is they don't know who they are. And I think through the military services, and I say that broadly speaking, it doesn't have to be the Army. I believe the Navy does a cracking good. We give them a hard time, the Navy and the Air Force as well, but they all do a brilliant job. And they all have the same emphasis on character and career building. Yeah. So I would say that to any youngster who's thinking of joining the forces. Anyway, more importantly, I would also say as well, what happens during this period is growth. So let's talk about discipline. Yes, let's talk about throwing weapons and whatever, but let's also talk about growth. And what happens is things like learning to keep yourself clean and tidy.
Clean and tidy.
Yeah.
The youth doesn't know anything.
No, doesn't know that. They oh my God, they don't know. And because I've got my own kids, and we've all got kids. We all know that telling them to brush their teeth and clean up themselves, wash in the morning, timekeeping, all of that. That's all part of growth. Yeah. And if you haven't learned it time you join the military, hell, you'll learn it when you get there. That's for sure. And so
polish your shoes.
Polish your shoes. Make your bed. Yeah. There's this thing that we call hospital corners. It's where even if you have a duvet, they teach you how to do hospital corner. So what happens, you do the sheets, you fold it up, you fold it down, you fold it in, you tuck it in, and it has this pristine right angled corner, and it looks silky smooth. And that's how the Army will have every single time, And then, but that becomes a norm. And then the next thing is like when you're standing on parade and your sergeant major's walking around and he's looking for the first excuse to tear you down and give you a good rifting in front of everyone, but you don't give him the chance. Why? Because you've polished your shoes. Why? Because you've ironed your tops, your shirts. Everything's pristine. Everything's flat. Everything's starched. If you speak to any youngster today, do you iron your clothes? No. Do you starch your clothes? Most kids don't even know what starch is.
Do you starch your clothes? That's true.
So I mean, these are all things. Not only are they character building, not only do they promote growth, but they're also life lessons. These are skills that you will take with you for the rest of your life. These are things that in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, it will give you more than if you hadn't learned those things.
That's right, yeah.
So again, it's one. I remember I've had a couple of girlfriends over the years, but the funniest thing is, and you always get to this juncture where maybe you're getting ready to go to a nightclub or discotheque as it was back in the day. Yeah. And your girlfriend gives you her dress to iron because she knows you're better at ironing. That did certainly happen a few times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, indeed.
But if you wear the uniform, all the girls used to like them.
Yeah, absolutely. That again is another knock-on attribute to being in the forces.
Yeah.
It does. Again, it's different. There's a saying: different strokes for different folks. That basically means some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah.
But if you work where we were in Germany, there is a British garrison. In fact, there was 3 British garrisons in one town. Yeah. So there was a lot of British soldiers running around, and we got a lot of attention from the young German girls.
And the accent as well.
Now, here's the thing. Do you remember what I was telling you earlier on about learning German? Now, the funniest thing is, do you remember I said to you that when I was at school, I chose to learn German rather than French? So what happened is when I joined the army and went to Germany, when I joined the army and went straight to Dortmund, I could speak it, not great, but I could speak a damn sight more than most of the other soldiers. Yeah. And that actually enticed me to learn more. So when most soldiers, and again, I'm not trying to differentiate between the white soldiers and the black soldiers, but one of the things that happened is when white soldiers finished their day, they usually go to the local pub or down to the bar and have, have a little couple of drinks and
that's right.
Knees up and all that kind of business. And great to it, I have no problem with that at all. That's what kept them happy. But the black guys, you know what they did. They usually got in their cars and went off campus. Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd go to the local German nightclubs. And again, it was that kind of community that the black people from different regiments would then get together and form their own little hub. And that's what happened. And for me,
and another thing is to meet other people as well.
Yeah,
because you're there.
Well, not only that, but just tying into what we was just saying earlier. Remember about learning German. Yeah. So not only was it advantageous for me to learn that as a youngster, but now when I was in the army, it was advantageous even more to learn it perfectly. So what happened now is I was now speaking German at a really high standard, higher than anyone in the barracks. And what I found is when I mixed with the other black guys that were in Germany as well, they all spoke perfect German. Yeah. So we could,
way.
Yeah, absolutely. All the black guys around could all speak German. So,
no way.
Yeah, absolutely. To this day, I speak German. It's not a problem. My children, for example, they are German.
Oh,
yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, my children are German.
Really?
Yeah, I have 3 boys. In fact, my oldest boy is coming over to see me next week, in a couple of weeks.
Are they in German?
Yeah. I've got twins in.
You produce twins as well.
Oh my God! There's so much that you don't know. The mother of my twins is actually a twin herself. So before I claim all the fame to myself, that's not true. So there you go. My brother, who I was just telling you about, he has twin girls. Yeah, and they are here in Ipswich. Yeah, so they live here in Ipswich. That's beautiful. Yeah. And again, so that's my twins. The mother is twins, and my brother's got twins. So there's 3 sets of twins in the family. There you go. Crazy twins. But anyway, my oldest boy, Leon, he was born over in Germany as well. We're very close actually, and he comes over to see me every year. And obviously when he was here, we can speak German or English or whatever he's comfortable with. Yeah. And the same thing when I go over to Germany. But one of the reasons why it wasn't just to obviously woo the girls. I mean, I'd love to sit here and pretend that's what it was all about, but it wasn't. There's more to it than that. The truth of it was, I had in my head that maybe I wanted to stay in Germany. The standard of living in Germany at that point certainly was much higher than what it was here in the UK.
In the UK.
So I had it in my head, and don't forget, my brother had already left the forces at this stage. Yeah, and he was enjoying the best of life and spent some time in Germany. Some of the other black guys as well spent some time in Germany. So I already had it in my head. Not only was I going to go to Germany, but now that I was there, I was going to stay there. Yeah. And so for that, I needed to speak the lingo. So the funniest thing is, I left after 6 or 7 years in the army. And I stayed in Germany. In fact, there's a short story to that as well. I actually left the army, came back to the UK just to hand my ID card in. Yeah. And I literally jumped on the next plane and went straight back to Germany. I think I stopped at my parents just to say hi and bye, and then I went straight back to Germany. Yeah. And I had a girlfriend there at the time, settled down, got a job, an insurance company, and I've always said this, and I believe that runs true probably still to this day. The best years of my life weren't actually in the army. I did learn enough. I think the most important years of my life were probably in the army. Yeah. But the best years of my life was probably the 5 or 6 years directly after leaving the army. Right. Because I was lucky enough to walk straight into a job that paid incredible amount of money. I had the freedom of doing whatever I wanted to. I could speak the lingo. and I was,
And
happy.
you were different as well.
Yeah, it changed.
In Germany, you become a black man and speak the
Speak
German
the
language.
Absolutely.
And everything is like, it's like kind of like a show.
Absolutely. The world became my oyster.
Yeah.
The truth of it is, you do run a little bit loose cannon. So I will say that it was a little bit loose cannon, because not only was I there was a lot of other black guys doing exactly the same thing.
The same thing, yeah.
Just running loose cannon across Germany. But my point to all of this was that I'd done my hard time in the army.
Yeah.
I'd learned a lot. I'd gathered a lot of information about myself, about life, about the world, and now I just wanted to first of all enjoy it, but then move on to the next stage of my life. Now at that stage, it was actually working with a military associated insurance company.
Yeah.
So they did insurances mostly for the British Army. And if you think back to when the Gulf War broke out, there was a lot of soldiers going off to war, but they didn't have insurance.
So
right. My role then was to actually sell them insurance. So it's not like I had to go out there and sell it to them. They were literally coming to me to get to the insurance. Yeah. And I was making an incredible amount of money very, very quickly as well. So,
because they were thinking about, if anything happens to them, they gotta,
their wives and children, their house, all paid for.
Should be in a better position.
Absolutely.
After they're gone.
That's what it was all about.
But there's always one thing I had in mind.
What's that?
It's like, once you've done the army, when you finish, the army doesn't look after their people.
Right, you're scratching on something here. Now that is, let's take this at a tangent of what is the maximum that you can do for a soldier.
Yeah.
What is the minimum? What is the least? Is it nothing? So when I was in the army, when I left,
yeah,
it was slightly different then than what it is now. So what I would say now, when you're leaving the forces, there are a lot of institutions that will try to help you and take care of you. So I don't want, again, anyone who's thinking of joining the army or is in the army, don't think that there's nothing there. I actually now I'm embroidered in an array of facilities and institutions that their sole purpose is to help those soldiers that have either lost limbs, lost eyesight, or even PTSD. When you're psychologically traumatized, and even those who are just financially destitute, there is always a way now. So the way it is today is much better than what it was, say, 20, 30 years ago.
But most of the government, it always talks about they're cutting costs.
I knew you
they're
going to
say cut this. They're going to cut this. They're going to cut that.
I think the harshness of this really is seen when you see what some of the other. So there is a country called Israel. We know about them. What they do for their soldiers when they leave is absolutely everything. In fact, it's more than the Americans. We all know about the Americans.
Yeah.
The Americans, when they leave the forces, I don't know how true this is, but I hear they either pay reduced taxes or they pay no tax towards cars or properties, whatever. I don't know how true that is, but I know that they're taken care of to a very high degree, and I know that they're held in high esteem. So as soon as an American serviceman leaves the forces and you says he's a veteran, he's held at high esteem.
Yeah.
We don't quite get that same thing here in the UK. It's a lot better now than what it used to be, but it's not quite the same as America, and it certainly isn't the same as Israel. In Israel, once you've served your time, you are seen almost as being a prime estate citizen. Yeah, and that's very different to how it is here in the UK. But in the same breath, I would also say it's much better today than what it was when I first left, because just what you said earlier on, when I left and I had problems with my eyes and I didn't have anyone to turn to. Not only did I not have anyone to turn to, there wasn't a structure as such for people then to turn to. Yeah. Now, there was the charity that you see here, Blind Veterans. Back then, they weren't called that. They were actually called St Dunstan's. And the problem with that, I don't want to dwell on this for too long, but I do want to get it out there because the charity does incredibly good work. Yeah. But when they were called St Dunstan's, it doesn't ring any bells. It doesn't suggest what they do. So there's no reason for anyone to go to them. Now, whereas when it says Blind Veterans, first of all, the fact it says veterans, it means anyone who used to be in the forces. Forces, great, yeah. And it's blind. Well, it suggests that someone who's either blind or partially sighted, if you've got that issue, then you can go forward to them. Yeah. Now, there's also other charities built up in very similar manner that will help you in other areas. We've got a group called the Not Forgotten. Yeah. Now, that suggests people that are having a hard time after they left the forces and don't know where they're going. Okay. That's right. Yeah. There's another charity called Band of Brothers. There we go again. That suggests people that used to be maybe in the infantry or the paratroopers. Yeah. And there's another charity called Help the Heroes. You probably heard of that.
I did.
So again, there's these areas that are around today that weren't around before. So I just want to hammer that out. If you're in the British Forces, you can be taken care of. I know the government is doing a lot of cuts, but that seems to be more to do with, the Army, the Air Force as they stand today, not so much as a veteran leaving or a military member leaving the military. So again, if you're in the military or you're thinking of joining the military, there's no reason to think you won't get the help.
So let's say me as a young man, I'm very young.
Yes, you look very young.
I'm very young. Me as a young man coming out, now I get confused on which department I would go. Like,
you mean within the Army or within the forces? You mean Air Force, Army, Navy, or you mean in the Army what you want to do?
Yeah, all of them.
Okay.
Right. What would be the best department to get into where you can have good benefits?
That's so easy to answer. In that, it's actually very difficult, but very easy, and I'll explain what I mean. If you was leaving school and going to go and get a job normally, you need to have a rough idea of what you want to work. Clerical.
Let's put that on the mic. Bring it out.
I do apologise. Can you hear me better now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, there we are.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So just the same as if you was leaving the forces, if you was leaving school, before you join the forces, some people choose to go to, like I did, go to university or college. And that kind of gives you a direction of what you might want to do when you get there, when you get to the forces. Exactly the same as if you was a civilian. If you was a child just left at 16, whether you go to college or not, you need to have a rough idea of what you think you want to do. And it's the same when you join the forces. So let's just say you want to do clerical work. You want to be in charge of paperwork and administration. There are thousands of people in the forces that do exactly that, and they'll steer you towards it. Let's just say you want to be a medic, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a nurse. We have that in the forces too. So you can steer yourself towards that. So whatever it is, now my brother, for example, he wanted to be not just an engineer, he wanted to be a technical electrical engineer in the military. So when he joined, he had the qualifications to first of all get into that part of the army, but then when he got into that part of the army, they continued to train him to a very high degree. Now, just to cap that one off there, my brother, he was one of the first black Afro-Caribbean artificers. So you get normal soldiers, you get officers. Well, my brother became an artificer. And not only is it a high rank, it's actually quite a difficult position to get to because you have to be technically qualified first. And even the course itself is very difficult. In fact, it's called the marriage breaker because anyone who's married when they start that course, 9 times out of 10 they're not when it finishes. It's just a really, really difficult course to get through because it's almost like doing your
very intense.
Your master's degree and so forth. It's really, really. So my brother did that. He passed it and he became an artificer in the army. So he did fantastic. Again, if you ever get the chance to speak to him, I'm sure he'd love to tell you all about that. Anyway, tying that into what you were saying, let's just say that you want to join the forces and you want to do something incredibly good, incredibly unique. Let's just say you want to be special forces, then they'll steer you towards that. If you want to be an artificer, they'll steer you towards that.
What do you call it? Artificer.
Artificer. So that is a tech. Right. So INSTech. So instruments, electrical and mechanical instruments. So for example, let's imagine that there is a tank. And its turret turns around. That's mechanical. Let's imagine
that part. The
top mechanic. Part. So you want a mechanic to help you with that. That's right.
That'd be
the turret that comes round. Okay. Now let's imagine that same tank, but it doesn't have a turret on top of it. It has missiles on top of it. Okay. So now you have you want a mechanic to help you with the mechanical side of it, but you need an electrician to help you with the electrical side of it. But these instruments, these electrical parts are so technical, you want someone who is elite at that. And he needs to be trained at it. And that's called an instruments tech. instruments tech.
Instrument tech.
And these guys are the best of the best of the best. So when this missile system goes out there, if something damages it, you can't just call an ordinary mechanic.
Yeah.
He can fix the tracks, he can fix the turret and everything else, but he can't fix the missiles and the electrics and everything else in there, whereas an inst tech can, and that's what my brother used to do.
So your brother make bombs as well?
Oh my God! No. He was. You are so one-minded. There are so many electrical things in the military.
Yeah.
So, for example, signal boxes, which is where people talk to each other using electronic equipment. There's lots of other things that are electrically engaging that aren't necessarily missiles and bombs. But yes, there are missiles and bombs that have electrics in them as well. So to answer your question, yes, that is what they do as well. Yeah, absolutely.
So they do cover everything.
Absolutely, and they need to be trained to that high standard. So because you can't get a person who's electrically engineered just for one thing. He needs to be able to repair and deal with a broad raft of things, and that's why they have to be so elite. And my brother was one of those who managed to
shout out to him.
Yeah,
when it comes to selections, how do they select people? You know, how do you see this one is good for this one is good
all
for
on
that?
merit? The one good thing I'll say about the army is it's all based on merit. So they don't see the color of your skin at that stage. In fact, they don't even get the opportunity to, because the testing and whatever it's not the same people that will actually be qualifying you at the end of it. So it's all done on merit. And that's why sometimes you get some people that are quiet, mild-mannered, shy, but then they join the army and they become officers. They become sergeant majors, and before you know it, they're majors and colonels. That's because they have the attribute that's needed inside them to become greater. And sometimes you have some loudmouth punk who used to beat up everyone at school. He joins the army, and he's the guy who's actually having a hard time, can't deal with everything because he hasn't actually got the mettle, the fortitude to be a real soldier. Do you know what, since we've just tapped on that, that's something that I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. Have you ever thought to yourself, when you hear about in London when some young black guy stabs another young black guy, and you think, oh my gosh, and then when you see them on the streets and whatever, they're talking to each other. Don't get me wrong, I'm all one for the culture. I just don't believe that we need to stab and fight each other on every opportunity. But then when you talk to them and say, look, what you need is a good stint in the army that will sort you out. And no, I don't want to join the army. I can't do what I wanted. But you're quite happy to pick up a knife and stab someone. This is the
thing.
Yeah, this is something that I have had difficulties understanding. Now, when I was a youngster, I never once thought of picking up a knife and stabbing my friend or my enemy or whoever it was. There were times where I got into arguments. In fact, there were times I got into fights. And if I couldn't sort it out with my fists, then it would certainly be something that I could sit down and talk about. But now today it seems to be who can shank who, and who's in what gang, whatever. And that's where I think that the black community can do a hell of a lot more than what we're doing at the moment for our youngsters.
I think maybe we need to go back to the olden days where everybody in school, they have a gap year to go to the army.
Have they stopped doing that? Sorry. So when I was in school, I had, it wasn't a gap year, but we had a work experience period. And I think, did I choose the army? What? I think I did. I went away with because I was already when I was 14, I joined the Air Cadets. Because part of my mind was saying I wasn't sure if I wanted to be in the army or whether I wanted to be a pilot. Obviously everyone wants to be either an astronaut or a pilot or whatever. So I just went through that period where I thought that's what I wanted to do. But the funniest thing is I did my work experience with the army. I think it was with the Army Cadets. And so again, answering your question, how do you sort that out? You can do work experience with them. This is then, I don't know how it is today. I really don't. I mean, you saying that is just that reminded me, I haven't thought about that since I was at school. So maybe they do things differently now. I don't know.
Because at least some people, they would do well in the army, but they don't know that they would do well. But because, we don't have that anymore.
Well, yeah, but remember what I said to you earlier on about Sutton Coldfield? I don't want to go drum on that again, but there is a system in the military of working, because the last thing that the army wants to do is to bring 1,000 people in and only 60 of them stay in. So they have their own filter system to work out who will be good in the army, who's ready for the army, and who isn't. And that system is called selection, and I believe it's done at a place near Birmingham called Sutton Coldfield. Right. And that's where all the recruits go. And at that point, they are only recruits. And very often people go there and they get sent home. Say, the army's not really for you. That does happen. That is a thing. That is a thing, yeah. Or sometimes they're told, try again next year. And it isn't necessarily because they don't believe they'll be ready by the following year. It's just it gives them an opportunity to find it out for themselves. Right. Because sometimes people are, I don't want to do, I want to join the army. But maybe they've got, they're way overweight. Sometimes you get people that are big and strong, but they're just way overweight. And then you've got sometimes people that are just completely unfit. They can't even do 2 press-ups, can't do a pull-up, can't run more than 50 meters without being out of breath or whatever. Now, they'll send them away, say, get yourself fit and come back again in 3 months or in a year or whatever. And very often those people don't come back again. But if they do, that means they were interested and they do want to do it. So there is there's a very good system of filtering people out and filtering them back in again if they are the right type of people for the military.
This is for what you as personally, what made you to survive in the army?
So you want to know about the good and the bad, right? So when I was in the army, there were areas that I thrived in, that I actually relished, and it was anything to do with sport, because I was very physically well attributed. So in the army, I don't know if it's the same today, but there's 2 types of tests that you continually take when you're in the army. So it's called the BFT, which is the basic fitness test, and the CFT, which is I think it's called a combat fitness test. And that's done like once every 3 months. And the basic is once a month, I think, or something like that. I'm not too sure. And anyway, the basic fitness test is just a run. And in fact, I've heard today that, tying back to what we were saying earlier on, they've changed the army so much that I don't even recognize it anymore. When I used to be in the army, it was a case that you would run in your combats. You'd run in your boots. And you would run. And
your gun.
No, because it's the basic combat fitness test, but basic, no. But then you would run. And the whole idea that you would do the best you can as an individual. You were answerable to yourself. And so you would run. And I was quite good at that. So put my boots on and run. And the only reason I say it like I have is because I heard today that the youngsters today, they're like, oh, my feet hurt. I don't want to wear those boots. I get corns on my feet.
In the army?
And so the last thing I heard is that now they do the BFT in trainers. You can wear your Nikes.
No.
I mean, it's not like you can go to war and put your Nikes on. Again, I don't know how much of that is true, so I am going to say I take that with a caveat. I might be wrong, but that's what I've heard, and I've heard it more than once as well. Now, anyway, the other side of it was what you was alluding to is the combat fitness test. Now, this only comes around like every quarter, I think, and for that, you could wear slightly different footwear. I think you'd wear your combats, and you would. Did you have anything on your back? I don't think you did. But more importantly, the goal of that is you go out as a squad and you come back in as a squad. So the slowest man is as fast as the whole squad will do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you start, and the way it used to work is you would march for 1/4 mile.
Okay.
You'd run for 1/4 mile. You'd march for 1/4 mile, and you do that until you covered, I think it's 5 miles or something like that, or 3 miles, I can't remember what it was. Now, that in itself sounds quite easy. But there's a time you need to come in. As a squad, there's a time.
Everything is time.
So what we used to do is put the slowest person right at the front, for the march, and so you can push. And the good thing about, even if you're unfit, you can probably march quite well. But then as soon as it goes to the run, you try and keep that person as far in front of you as possible. But they do filter backwards slowly until you see them at the end, and then you start calling out, keep going, keep going, keep going. And as a squad, as you cross that line, it's the last person, as he crosses the line, that is your time as a squad. I say a squad, it's a troop. It's a troop. So a squad has 4 people. A troop has 30 people. So,
a troop, squad.
Yeah.
And then how does it? There's this special force that they they send them like if they want to take anybody down. He said, I don't know. They say,
where are you getting your information?
I'm watching movies.
Yeah, you are watching movies. So now I'm going to say this quite clearly.
Yeah.
Most of the British forces are brilliant at what they do. So yes, we do have special forces, but for example, we have something called the Royal Marine Commandos.
Yeah.
And they are sent overseas. They are sent into areas where we wouldn't necessarily send your average typical soldier, and they do what they do, and they're very good at it. We also have a regiment called the Paratroopers.
Right.
Very big, butch and strong. They're good at using the weapons that they use.
Yeah.
They usually parachute into wherever they're needed, and they are elite. They are very good at what they do. Now, I think by listening to you, what you was really alluding to was the SAS.
SAS,
yes. SAS, the Special Airs. Right, okay. Now, they are a smaller regiment. They are super elite, but they tend to be for kind of anti-terrorist specialist operations. That isn't something.
Those are the people who come in 2 minutes and then do their job and gone.
You've been watching too many films, mate. Yes, that regiment does exist, but that's not the kind of thing where you wake up one day and say, I want to be SAS, and go into the army and say, I want to be SAS. It doesn't matter. The SAS will recruit. They look amongst the rest of the army. They'll say, this guy's super fit. This guy's well qualified. Oh, by the way, everyone in the SAS, not only are they super fit, super strong, technically minded, great with weapons, they are elite in one particular area. So this guy might be brilliant at comms. So when he goes up there, he can work computers brilliantly or whatever it is. So it's not the kind of thing where you'd go and say, I want to be SAS. It doesn't quite work like that. They will.
But I would fit properly very good.
You look like the kind of person who would be SAS, actually.
Seriously. I would like go in 1 minute, like fight.
You think so? There might be a question mark over that one. But what I'll say, the funniest thing is I've met people from the SAS. I've worked with people from the commandos and paratroopers as well. And it's funny actually because you think the more elite they become, the bigger and butcher they become. Yeah. But I've met guys from the SAS and they're not. They literally look like normal people. Yes, they look like they've taken care of themselves. They're all quite, physique wise, they're all quite, fit, but they're not super muscly. It's when you look at the paratroopers and even the commandos to a certain degree that are really big and butch and super muscly. Yeah. But the elites, no, an SAS guy could walk into your pub and you wouldn't know, and that's part of it. Surely that's got to be part of it, isn't it? Not when a guy who's a commando or paratrooper walks in and he's. He walks in and you think, my gosh, I wouldn't mess with him. Yeah. But the guy who comes in from the SAS, you want him to be able to mix and mingle and just disappear into the crowd. Yeah, because that's what they do.
That's part of the training and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they're very good on killing as well.
Yeah, but you were talking about hand-to-hand combat.
Use their hands and protection and all that kind of stuff. They choke you, isn't it? Choke you
My gosh. What so anyone who's listening to this podcast right now, I just want to make it crystal clear I'm out of my depth. Right, yeah. So So these guys, they're all trained in hand-to-hand combat at an absolute elite level. Coincidentally, there is a martial art that's called Krav Maga. And a lot of them study that. It's actually an Israeli type of mixed martial art, where almost anything goes. Whenever you could grab a spoon on the table and turn it into a weapon. If you were doing Krav Maga, for example, and some of these guys they train at such high elite levels that everything around them can be a weapon. I'm not. I don't know too much about it. I do follow a little bit of it, but I don't know too much about it. I've dabbled a little bit in the mixed martial arts, a very basic low, first tier level, and I got my ass truly handed to me. I had my butt kicked left, right, and center. So the guys at the top, they are super, super elite, like you say. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm thinking as other people watching would watch this, and they would, it would be good for kids. I believe it would be good for kids to learn a lot of things and a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So do you remember how this conversation started where we were talking about kids that have come out and don't really know themselves, don't really know what they want?
Yeah.
And there are three areas of which we think would be really good for them. So first of all, we said discipline. And that's got to come first because
Discipline.
what I find, and again, I've just got to allude back to, or refer back to when we was talking about these black guys running around in their gangs, they've got these things called zombie knives and shank knives and machetes and whatever. What the hell, man?
Yeah.
You know? And the thing is, if you sit them down in a room, take all that crap away from them, sit them down in a room and say, hey, look, what do you want out of life? Yeah, I want to be a gang member. I want to be a rude boy. I'm a bad man. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. We can do that for you. We're going to put you in the army for 3 years. And I guarantee when you come out of that, you'll be a bad man. Yeah? They'll say, no, I can't do what I want to do. I don't like taking orders.
Yeah.
Mate, discipline.
Discipline.
Yeah? It's how to become a real man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's anyway, just covering what you were saying there. I think, yes, I agree with you. The army would be great for these youngsters, but there are things that are so much more important than maybe learning martial arts and all the rest of it. I just think the first part of it is growth, discipline and growth, and then obviously character building as well. So it's shaping the person that you will later become, and what you do from the age of 16 through to say 21, those 5 years is so important to what you will be in 50 years time. Yeah, the person you'll be in 40 years, the person you'll be in 30 years is shaped primarily by what happens in those first 5 years after you leave school. And so, martial arts is great, but I don't think that's the most important thing. Shooting guns is great, isn't necessarily the most important thing. I think the discipline is more important. I think the character building and the growth when we talked about life skills. Yeah. Learning simple stuff like how to keep yourself neat and tidy, keep yourself clean, iron your clothes, make your bed, I said to my children growing up, whatever I do, when I come back in the house in the evening, I want to see your beds made. Yeah. All the rest of it, mum can take care of, whatever. But when I come back in, if I come back in and I see your bed's not made, it's you and me. Yeah. Yeah. And, and sometimes it might be a case of just, flapping it out. But then do that. Yeah. But what I don't want to hear is, I never had time. Yeah. Because the way you leave your bed in the morning, is what I'd say to them, is how your mind will operate for the rest of the day. If you're scruffy, I don't really care, well, that's how your day's going to be. Yeah. Now, what happened with my 3 kids, for example, is that became the one most important thing, making the beds. I know it sounds a little bit insular, but it worked, and certainly with my oldest lad, he's now running a technical platform with do you know what, he used to be a computer analyzer, and then he rang me. This is quite funny because he's always changing his jobs. He rang me a couple of months ago and said, Dad, I'm changing my job, and now he's moved from Hamburg to Berlin to do more instrument technological advances in his career. Man. But my point to this is his early days is what shaped him to be where he is now. So when I speak to him about, things that cheese him off or things that have got him down, he doesn't talk about grabbing a knife and shanking someone. His thing is, Dad, well, I came home and, my girlfriend's car broke down. I don't know how to help her and da-da-da. And, those everyday things that are important, they're the things that are important to him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
You know what, Ryan? You're a very intelligent guy, man.
Oh, thank you very much.
You are a very intelligent guy, man. Sitting here with you, learning all this stuff, man. And for you to come to us and say, you know what, guys, I just want to, share some information.
Well, you know what I'm doing? Let's make this the first step of many steps.
Yes,
because today you've made it a little bit about me, but I would be a liar if I said, well, I came here and I came through this door thinking all I want to do is talk about me. That's not the truth. The truth is there is a much bigger picture here, and I want to talk about our community. I want to talk about the people that we can bring in, and I want to see that in a year, in a couple of years from now, we're a lot further than where we are right now. Brilliant. So I was happy to embroider you with my life today, because I wanted you to understand who I am and where I come from and my background. But the truth of it is, from here onwards, I would like to try and, set a path where we can bring everyone forward.
Let's get engaged and let's...
absolutely.
And
so we'll throw some names out there.
Yep.
Yeah, and we'll in fact, some of these people I have already spoke to. So, for example, you're going to be interviewing Derek soon, aren't you? Derek.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah, great guy. I will speak to my father. I believe there's some input there that can be had. And there's also people like Elaine, Imani, who we were talking about it before, people that we can bring in and engage with as well on a different level. And don't forget, when we bring those people in, it will be on a completely different subject.
Yeah.
When we bring Elaine in, she'll probably want to talk about medical and how black people can, engage themselves in the community on the medical side of things,
That's
and
right.
then when you bring Imani in, she'll be, the youngsters of today, they need direction and whatever, and then Karen is a good friend of mine. She'll say, well, maybe black people could take care of themselves, being overweight and not doing exercise, and this mentality of the, work first and health later. No, health first, work later,
That's right.
The better your health is, the better your work will be. So again, these are all people that we can bring into this association.
Shout out to you, man,
and see what we can do. And like I said, while this is going on, I'll always be in the background. I'll always be here. You can always feel free to call me.
For us, we're so privileged, man, to have you. To be honest, and we're grateful. For the fact, I'm not only saying, but I really want you to come back. I really want to get engaged to us,
Yeah, no problem.
And
that's absolutely fine. So, consider me an honorary member. Yeah, that's not a problem. So,
if somebody wants to get hold of you, how could they get hold of you?
Well, you know how to get hold of me.
Oh, yes, please.
You've got my WhatsApp number, and I'm pretty well attainable on that. As you can see, when either my mum calls me or Noxie,
your phone is busy, man.
Nine times I've switched it onto airplane mode.
That's cool, man. Wicked's cool.
Otherwise, we won't get anything in. Most people can get hold of me. That's fine. I'm easy to approach most subjects. Anything that I can't answer, I usually know who to speak to get a result. So that's not a problem.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, a great gentleman in the house. Thank you.
Drum roll, if
yes,
you
sir. Woo! Boo, boo, boo. There we go. Bring the oil in.
There we go.
Right. Thank you, man.
Me want my dad, give me to my wee. Me want my dad, give me to my wee. Me want my dad, give me to my